If you think Conor McGregor disappeared because he got older or started losing fights, you're missing the biggest reason his career fell apart. It wasn't one loss, it wasn't one injury, it was what happened after he became the biggest star in the sport. Because the same things that built Conor McGregor eventually started destroying him. Before the money, before the yachts, before the private jets, Conor was obsessed. Every interview, every training session had one purpose: becoming the best. He wasn't chasing fame. Fame was simply a byproduct of his obsession. That obsession showed inside the cage. He studied opponents for months, predicted exactly how fights would play out, and trained with a level of focus that few fighters could match. Every punch had intention. But success changes people in ways failure never can. When you've achieved everything you've dreamed of, the hunger that got you there becomes much harder to protect. The urgency disappears. The sacrifices no longer feel necessary because you've already won. And that's where everything started to shift. Money gave Conor freedom. Fame gave him attention. But both also gave him endless distractions. Instead of structuring his life around fighting, fighting slowly became something that had to fit around the rest of his life. Businesses, parties, luxury, none of these things ruin you overnight. They slowly pull your focus away from the one thing that made you exceptional. This is the trap that catches many champions. You don't lose because someone else becomes better. You lose because you're no longer the same person who climbed to the top. Fighting rewards obsession. It punishes comfort. Every hour spent chasing status is an hour not spent sharpening skills. Every late night makes the next training session slightly worse. Every distraction is small by itself, but together they change the athlete. And in a sport where tiny differences decide championships, that matters. The most dangerous opponent Conor ever faced wasn't inside the octagon. It was success itself. Once your identity shifts from competitor to celebrity, your priorities begin shifting without you even noticing. Winning stops being the center of your life. It becomes one part of a much bigger lifestyle. You can still train hard. You can still look motivated. But there's a difference between preparing to fight and living for it. The version of Conor that knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds wasn't just talented. He was consumed by improvement. Every decision outside the cage supported what happened inside it. Years later, that clarity became much harder to find. Then came the losses. Against elite competition, the small advantages he once had started disappearing. His timing wasn't as sharp. His confidence no longer came from preparation alone. This isn't just Conor's story. History is filled with athletes whose greatest enemy wasn't another competitor. It was believing they could keep the same results without protecting the mindset that created them. Talent gets you noticed. Discipline keeps you there. Conor McGregor proved that obsession can take someone from welfare to global superstardom, but he also became a reminder that fame, money, and pleasure can quietly replace the very obsession that made greatness possible. Because the hardest part isn't reaching the top, it's staying the same person after you get there.